Well, hello there. It has been a bit of time. Welcome back to Practice into Play, the channel about reframing learning and personal transformation, at least predominantly. I haven't been posting for 4 weeks, so I'm going to restart doing that. And I thought these next 3-4 videos are going to be about making personal, professional plans, doing some journaling, doing some bullet journaling, but that's going to be different videos. You will see them together, those of you who are watching. This video, however, is going to be about transurfing and music. Music is something I've been interested for my entire life, and music performance predominantly. Transurfing is something I only discovered 4 years ago, and Transsurfing is packaged as the book and way of thinking, frameworks of thinking created by Vadim Zeeland about 20 years ago. I only read it for the first time 4 years ago and just reread it, the book that almost as thick as the War and Peace by Tolstoy a few months ago. And as I was reading, and I was reading audiobook version of that, as I was finishing it, it made me think of something in the music, and even though it doesn't arch in exact same way, there was something worth sharing in it, and I will connect it further, and hopefully it will help you too whenever you are struggling with technical elements of music. Because even though I discovered Transsurfing only 4 years ago, even though, like I said, it's a repackaged ideas from Vadim Zeeland that were basically already published from 1911, and throughout this new way of thinking on productivity, Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn, of course Dale Carnegie, and many, many others, I found Vadim Zeeland's repackaging particularly useful to me. So as I was getting to work and listening to this last portion of the book, he was saying that there is a paradox in which we humans end up thinking and spending a lot of energy thinking, feeling, coming back to the experiences, thoughts that express things that we don't want to experience in our life. We end up thinking what it is that we don't want. And the second half to that is that then we actually end up getting more of that we don't want in our life. So the remedy is think the things that you want. Now, as we all know, with everything that's going on in the world, it's not as easy, but so then I thought, and I wrote down the note when I got back from work, is that when we practice piece of music, we may end up spending too much time in our mind replaying this ideal, correct image, how something is supposed to sound. Now, nothing wrong with that, and we certainly need that, whether you're a pianist or if you're a conductor. But my argument is that it can't be just that. That can't be priority. At least it can't be a priority at all times when you're working on the music. Because, to my mind, it leads to, whenever we get into the problem, there is an error, mistake, whether we make it or somebody else makes, and then we need to correct this. But if all we listen for is this correct image, we, like what is it that we want, connecting to the transurfing, we end up minimizing, making some of the errors invisible to our mind. Because all that we do is just, that's how it's supposed to sound, and what we have just played, well, yeah, there was a bit of an error, but it almost sounds about the same. I certainly find myself in that bucket when I'm expressing this idea right now. I find myself reliving this kind of a loop, a framework of thinking quite frequently. So my point is, we should always be switching back and forth, always trying to find the balance between, we know how things need to go, and I'm not talking about just correct the level 1 level of correctness, correct notes, correct rhythms. But we also made all the choices how exactly we want things to sound. But that's the topic for another 50 videos. But we also need to be spending attention, and that's the balance I was trying to tell you about, to what actually is coming out from our fingers. What actually is coming out from the instruments of the musicians that are playing around us. And that's the game of balance. What I wanted to finish this video of just sharing some thinking, reflective video with is, even though I have discovered personally the Transsurfing of Reality 4 years ago, even though it's repackaged ideas of the century of thoughts before and different philosophies, including ideas that directly relate to quantum mechanics, as far as I understand certain concepts of it. Something made me think about my childhood when I was working on the very, very technically challenging at that time, and perhaps at all times for me, piece. At that time it was Liszt's transcription of Wagner's overture to Tannhäuser. So the following might relate to you whenever you are struggling with the technical ability. And I always have been teaching my students the idea that pretty much anything technical is simply a matter of time. When there is a technical challenge, it's a matter of time. If you put the right time in, if it's really a stretch, it might take you a few weeks, it might take you a month, it might take you a few months, it might take you half a year, it might take you a year to learn a 60-minute piano piece of music, for example. But with the right steps in place, with the right processes, it's going to happen. And that kind of unwavering faith and action, but correct, positive, productive, and with faith at the forefront, framework of thinking and framework of being, so identity, is what very much ties to certain aspects of Transsurfing. And it was a little bit of not eye-opening to me, but just a bit insightful to my mind, just to realize that 20, 25, 30, 20, 25 years ago, with the way I was thinking and approaching my, at that time, personal technical challenges with piano playing, and then what shaped my belief system regarding technical challenges in music is very much in line with that, let's call it, school of thought. So the final takeaway, music related, of the video: if you're struggling technically, figure out the figure it out and move on. No, but have a faith that you're going to overcome it. I'm creeping into a different video when I record, but I will say the following line: you need to be conscious. You need to use the right tool. You need to use the right method of learning something in order not to hurt your hands, in order to make progress, in order not to just spend hours, weeks learning 2 bars, so to speak, while hurting yourself and damaging your muscles. So there is that. But at least your mental attitude should always be healthy, should always be forward looking, whatever else is going on around you, or no matter how much time it takes. If you want to get it, if you want to learn it, have faith, have the right method, figure out the right method. If something hasn't been working with you, stop using hammer to screw in the screws into the wall. You simply need a different tool. You simply need a different approach, and things will go easier. If you still have 1,000 screws to put into the house, it's going to take time, but it's going to take far less time doing that with the drill or impact driver or whatever you want to think of than using the hammer. and I will be referring to this metaphor often in my upcoming videos in the next months, hammer being the most primitive, one of the most primitive tools out there. Nothing wrong with it, but our equivalent in the world of music of that would be rote repetition. So have faith, put your time, and focus on the right thinking. Focus on the thinking that what is it that you want to get, while being very, very perceptive of what is actually happening right now, and therefore how you need to course correct what it is that you do. Good luck. I will see you in the next video.